The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
After what I've heard from people this week, by either social media or just passing conversations, I'm like, why did I even think I could speak up and talk about things? Because most people are just, they don't get it. We're watching the complete eradication of freedom before our eyes, and most people are willing to go along with it. The conversations, and you'd think they would expand their personal beliefs, but maybe it's just too hard for them. Freedom may just be, and it's not hard at all, actually, but most people do not even grasp that concept of freedom and what that means. I literally had one person, we were on the subject of the situation and guns, and maybe they'll take guns or they won't take guns, and I had this one person who likes their gun but then said straight out, if they come for my gun, I'm just going to give it up. I'm like, that easy, huh? That easy? Just going to give up your stuff? So what if they come for your girl after that? What if they come for your girl after that? You're not going to have a gun to protect her from them. But that's just one of many things that I've heard. I had another person said, if they come for me, I'm just going to let it happen. Oh, why? It's amazing, absolutely baffling that people would, and any of you who are listening to me that this may relate to, I'm not directly pointing at you here. I'm just, in general, I've seen so much of this of late. People that are so sick of the whole thing, they're ready just to give it all up, just so they can have that normality again, almost, or they don't want to live in the world that exists. And I'm like, we were granted, we were bestowed, is a better term, freedom by our Creator, which transformed after thousands of years of the average person being a slave or subjugated to some other monarch, some king, some ruler of some area. A couple hundred years ago plus, a little more than 77 years ago, but you know, we had people that stood up against the monarchies of the world. And in that moment of time, that was England versus the United States, or what was a burgeoning concept of a new way of living in humanity. Because before that, there was really no freedom anywhere. You were always subject to the will or the whim of the ruling power. But that freedom that was given to us with a caveat. Ben, what did you write in there? I don't remember the actual sentence, but or quote, but it's Ben comes out and says, "A republic, if you can keep it." Well, we're not keeping it too much because most people don't understand the actual thought pattern behind it, or it's just too hard for them. And hopefully in this hour, if you're going to grant me this hour to listen through, because it's hard because you can offend people. And I know I'm going to offend people, not directly. I don't want anybody to take this personally, but if you're going to take what I have to say over the next 60 minutes or so personally, then maybe you need to look in the mirror and figure out why it's affecting you that way. Because I'm not directing this at any one person. But the idea that I'm just going to give up if they come for me or it or that or the other thing. That's not what freedom's about. So, are you not about freedom? And I'd like to, I would love to ask people directly, are you for the U.S. Constitution or you're not? Are you for freedom or not? Do you support the Declaration of Independence? Do you support the Bill of Rights? Now, some people will say yes, some people will say no, and some people will give you the answer of in part. Because sure, some parts that were written in there doesn't always agree with everybody, and I can understand that. The amendments, I have some problem with some of the amendments. But when we look at the concept of this country, what the founding was, beyond the people's backgrounds, just the general concept, the founding fathers used their blood, their fortunes, their livelihoods to stand up against the old world order. That was kings and queens and all these things that were basically wrapped up in a small shell called a monarchy. And they freed man. They let man go. They says, you don't have to be subject of a king. You're a free man. All men are created equal. I love that line. Of course, the people who take that literally think it's just men, the gender man, instead of mankind, the race of man. All men are created equal. It's like the Bible people that take every line in the Bible, or even the people that hate the Bible, take every line in the Bible literally. That's not what all men are created equal means. It means the race of mankind. You realize there's only one race. So many people want to subjugate themselves into a sub-race, white, black, all these other things. But there's only one race on the planet, folks, and it's a human race. And the westernized version of the human race is the most advanced and most freedom-loving, I thought. The West gave you freedom. It unleashed the mob so they didn't have to be subjugated to a king or queen. Look what happened since the founding of this country, the United States. Almost every monarchy there was, outside of a few, have been toppled. It's not this slow roll like we're toppling governments now for other reasons, so they now have to be subject of a new world order. See, they got rid of the old world order, gave people freedom, and they said, if you can keep it. And what does that mean, if you can keep it? Well, you got to know what the founding documents told you, because it's all in there, folks. All men are created equal. with certain unalienable or inalienable rights, whatever one you want to use, because you can argue over that word, but that just means nobody can take those rights away from you, and you can't give them away. If you give them away, you're no longer free. And what happens when you're no longer free? You become subjugated. You become a slave. You're obligated to do whatever somebody else tells you to do. These rights, by the way, do you remember the Declaration of Independence? Because that's part of the founding documents. People who tout the Constitution normally leave that one out. All men are created equal, right? Your rights can't be taken away, and you're not even supposed to give up your rights if you believe in freedom. That's the purpose. If you believe in freedom, you can't even give up your rights. You don't have that right to give up your rights. What are those rights? There's really three. Three main rights. Life. To have freedom, you have to be alive. You have to be given life. Simple. Pretty simple, right? A lot of people, especially on the left, don't even understand that. Since they want to kill so many people so they don't ever have any rights. Never had rights. See, if you kill them beforehand, before they even get here, you don't need to acknowledge they have rights. So life is one of them. Liberty. That means do whatever you want, as long as you don't take it away from someone else. Infringe on someone else's liberty. For example, you don't go, because you don't like what they say, you don't go and tear down their gates or destroy them financially. You don't do that. You live your thing, they live their thing, you leave them alone. You leave them alone. That's what freedom is, by the way. It's not that you can do anything you want, because we all know that murder's not a good thing, rape's not a good thing. That's why we put people in jail for that. So there are limits to your liberty. A lot of people don't want that, especially on the left side of the aisle. They don't want that liberty for you. And the pursuit of happiness. Do whatever you want that makes you happy, as long as you don't do something that takes away somebody else's freedom and happiness. That even means respecting your neighbors a little bit. Don't jam your music too loud. Don't be, if you're right up on your neighbors, if you've got acres and acres and acres until your next neighbor, fine, do what you. But if you got neighbors right on you, have a little respect. Because we're not supposed to hate on each other if we believe in freedom. And those three basic tenets of the founding of this country are almost all lost. In fact, you could say they're virtually non-existent. Because right from the get-go, somebody's civil rights, which trumps natural rights these days, and you know what civil rights are, and we'll probably have to get into that a little later after the break here. But civil rights are rights that are granted to you from the government, which means you've already given away those creator-endowed rights. Whatever your creator is, doesn't matter. You don't have to call it God. You don't have to call it Allah. You don't have to call it anything. Could be a universal free thing bestowed on you. Freedom, like the birds. Anyways, we're going to take a quick break. We'll continue this. Yeah, no news today. I'm tired of the news. All that malpractice is just about set me off. We'll talk more. Please stick with me, folks, because we need to get on common ground to understand where our freedom stands these days. We'll be right back.
Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going? Hey, you, get back here. The John Lebang Show will be right back. Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass. You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's better than an eyebrow convention.
Some of the other things that I heard over the week is the corporation that I work part-time for has implemented a women's rights group and a multicultural rights group. How sexist can a women's rights group be? Well, probably to a woman it's not sexist, but if there was an all-men's group, damn right it would be sexist, wouldn't it? And a multicultural group that I can guarantee you certain cultures will have less say than others because the others will say that they've been oppressed the whole time. In the country that tells you you have individual freedom. I mean, isn't that what the revolution was? It really wasn't a group of this people and that people all joining, in one giant group. It was a bunch of individuals that stood up for the collective right of their. Because you have to stand up for your freedom, folks. Or it'll be taken away. You can't subjugate somebody else to worry about your freedom. Look how that's worked out. You can just see here in Michigan, our beloved governor, Witless Gretchen up there. She doesn't know the concept of freedom. She wouldn't even know. She would say, well, it says right there in the Declaration of Independence. I know she would say that the government should promote general welfare. So the welfare is we have to all wear masks here in Michigan. And I know this is a nationwide mandate that's being dropped on us. But she doesn't understand what that means because promoting and dictating are two different things, ladies and gentlemen. And this is coming from the guy who wore the mask before they were telling us to wear the mask because I wanted to protect myself from other people. But we've gotten to the point where this is all ridiculous. And it falls all into the freedom category. In fact, that's what ignited this in my brain. It was my choice to wear a mask early on, as some people did. But now, it's no longer becoming a choice. Our governor, the beloved lady, just mandated that you have to wear a mask if you go out into public places and even in crowded exterior places. And the employees are supposed to enforce that rule. That's not freedom. That's dictates from the government. And now people are wearing masks. So you're just subjugating your freedom. I'm to the point where I'm like, fine, I'm not going to wear a mask now. Now that you told me to wear a mask, even though I've been wearing it the whole time, for my benefit, I'm in charge of my freedom. I'm in charge of protecting me. Okay? And I know that there's a lot of dirty people out there that don't care about their hygiene, don't care if they would spread any kind of disease that they might carry, whether it be COVID, whatever it might be. So I decided during this time that I'm going to wear a mask when I'm at my employer. And that's about the only time I wear a mask or when I go to the grocery store because there's a lot of dirty people there. But now she mandates us to wear a mask. And just like the people that when they come for us for our guns or when they come for me, I'm just going to give up. People are just now wearing masks because now they're told to. They're told to. See, if they're not forced to do it, They're not forced to do it. They're just not, most people are just going to go about their business because they don't care about others or themselves. Look at how a lot of people treat themselves. The foods they eat. The activities they engage in. The things they put in besides food that they put in their body. So there's a lot of people that didn't care. And then finally, the governor, because of these numbers that we can't tell, and we'll get into that as well at some point, I guess. But people giving away their freedom by now wearing a mask because they're told to wear masks. And I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm done, actually. I just won't go anywhere. I just will not go anywhere and spend my money. I've been doing that for a long time. Because that's the only way you can protest what really is going on at this point, because, well, they don't listen to you anymore. And we, as American people, have voted in these people, and we deserve the government we get. And it doesn't matter how much I have tried to enlighten people over the years, because most people will not change their behavior. That doesn't work. People don't listen. People are going to do whatever the hell they want. Fine. Freedom is great, except when you do it irresponsibly. And a lot of times, that ends up being a situation where you take away somebody else's freedom in the process, or you curtail it, or even worse, your stupidity ends a life or whatever. And when I heard about the multicultural groups and the women's groups, people love to subgroup themselves. You don't want to be part of the human race, right? You don't want to be part of the human race. You'd rather be part of some sub-race. And what I was saying earlier, because I know I'm all over the place, because I ain't keeping notes. I'm not keeping notes. We're talking here. We're discussing. We're trying to get a basic idea, joint idea, so we're on the same page. Because if there's anything out there, folks, that's going on, it's because none of us are on the same page. None of us believe the same stuff. Nobody believes that. I mean, the facts are so jumbled. There's so much information. We don't know what is right or wrong, and depending on your personal or political persuasion, you will fall into one category that of belief versus another. And we hear about open mind this and open. There's so much closed-mindedness on all sides of everything. And when you tell me that a woman's group isn't sexist, but a man's group is, there's something wrong there. As I've been stating, there's one race on the planet, it's called human. You either are human or you're an animal. And the rulers of the world see it that way. See, I don't disagree with a lot of the rulers, how they think humanity should go. We all need some kind of paradigm change. They tie all this together. They've manipulated us through the malpractice media, through our lying-ass politicians. And it's another thing that has gotten me so bad. You hear all these people, Trump this, Trump, whatever, good or bad, Trump. And the other side is, and like, fix your own. We deserve Trump. We deserve Biden. We deserved Obama because we as individuals decided we didn't want to be an individual. We wanted to be part of some clique, some group, because it makes us feel good. Feel good because we need leaders. We need people to direct our thoughts because we don't have original thought. We can't make decisions on our own in the greater picture. And a lot of times we want to subjugate the hard decisions to some politicians so that we can complain about it later. It's not our fault, although you voted them in, you idiot. You don't want corrupt politicians then you can't be corrupt. You have to hold their feet to the fire. You have to know what freedom is. Not civil rights, but the actual universal free will rights. I call it free will. Creator endowed. People get mad when you say creator endowed if they're an atheist, right? But I'm just saying it's there. Those are your rights. Once you're born on this earth, those are rights that were granted, bestowed. I should keep using bestowed on you by the universe if you don't want to believe in an immortal power. That's why they used that terminology, creator endowed rights. It was so that everybody would be included in that as long as you held the belief of freedom. And if you hold that belief, which not many of us do, but if you hold the belief of freedom for all, then you believe in the concepts of liberty, posterity, passing that on. That's what posterity means, passing on. But you have to keep it. And most people want to subjugate the hard decisions to someone else. Primarily a government. And the people who, on the other side, they can't get behind freedom because they don't like how restrictive it is. Because it's damn right restrictive. It means you must be responsible for every single one of your actions. And in some cases, be responsible for your community. That means if there's some kind of criminal behavior going on, you don't turn a blind eye to that. Because that criminal behavior is taking away the liberty of someone else. And if you're allowed, or if you allow the liberty of someone else to be taken away, then you're granting the authority to whoever to take it away from you. But as long as it's not taken away from you, you don't care. You don't care about other people's liberty. Do you? If you're a Democrat, you could give a crap what happens to a Republican, no matter how anti-American it might be. Well, unfortunately, the left is very anti-American. I don't understand that concept either. If you hate the country so much, you have, and this is what's great about America. If you hate this country so much, go to another country that you like, that's more in tune with what you believe in. That's freedom. Freedom isn't destroying property. Freedom isn't trying to change things because you don't like them. Not because it's immorally wrong. Or morally wrong, not immortally. Because we're in this anti-American culture that has been bled into this country through, yes, I'm going to say it, multiculturalism. We don't have a single set of rules anymore because we're dealing with multiculturalism. So no longer is there an American culture with American rules that dictate everything on freedom. The multicultural rule means we bring in flavors of all cultures, blend them in, and not all of those cultures are lovers of freedom. We got to take a Another timeout. All over the place. I know. Just riffing here, folks. We'll be right back.
Don't move a muscle.
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes!
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is your one-stop shop for tuxedos and men's quality suits. We go the extra mile to make sure your tux or suit is the perfect fit. Our huge selection is second to none in the state.
Looking good.
Outstanding customer service.
And we're located on Dix Toledo in Southgate. Call today, 734-285-3253.
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is the place to be.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to Jim's Tuxedos and Menswear.
You know I had to come to the best.
That's right.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
You know, our founding fathers, be it some of they did have some failings, some flaws and all that, but they held one belief that freedom itself was worth dying for. You know, over the years, as I've been doing the show, freedom may be worth dying for, but only my freedom at this point. Most of you aren't willing to die for your freedom. You'd rather subjugate yourself. And that's slavery. That's exactly the reason we had slaves at all in this country. If the people would have stood up, and I'm not particularly blaming the people that were rounded up to become slaves, because the concept of freedom really hadn't spread by then. Everybody, at one point or another, every type of culture, for the most part, was subjugated to another culture or another belief system or another monarchy at some point or another in history. That is the existence of mankind. But we had an enlightening moment when people said, no, we don't want any more of these monarchies. We wanted to get rid of that. Now, there were other motives behind why they wanted to unleash freedom on the world. Because once you toppled those governments, it left a vacuum. We had various forms of governments pop up since then. Everything from communism, dictatorships, socialisms, various versions of it, I mean, right up into the original concept of this country, which was really the only revolution that really turned out well. You know, when you look back and you see how revolutions go, they don't turn out very well. The Bolshevik Revolution, French Revolution, that was a bloody mess. Once they stopped killing the people they didn't like, they started killing the people that supported them. They just killed everybody. Because as Michael Savage says, once that guillotine is thirsty for blood, it wants more and it doesn't matter who it is. That's what we're seeing today. We're seeing revolutionary forces, whether it be the Black Lives Matter, Antifa, those, I forgot what that other group that was in Georgia was called. We have all these revolutionary forces, but they're more like the Bolshevik revolutionary forces or the Maoist revolutionary forces than they are the American revolutionary forces. They were fighting for their individual freedom. It wasn't a group of people that was brought together asking for money and all. No, it was a whole lot of individuals. Go read the history beyond what the jackass education system has blurred, at very least, has manipulated, has distorted. There is a rich history of goodness behind the American founding, this country's founding. And the youth either wasn't taught about it or they were taught to hate it. And a lot of this, I'm speaking to the youth of this country because they're going to be in charge really soon. We're going to hopefully hold that off for a little while. Because they're not ready. And that's a parents' generation's fault. But there's been a destruction of the family for so long. That's another founding reason this country survived and thrived. Was because of the family. But going back to what I was saying earlier, those people, even though the concept of freedom hadn't spread across the world yet, the westernized idea, all you people that hate the West brought freedom. But it was then infiltrated by people because a lot of people still wanted power, because once the vacuum of being a monarch was removed, you remove monarchies and there becomes a vacuum. All these different power structures started growing. But the West still had the best version of it. And it was based on the individual dictating their own life, taking full responsibility. We can go back to William Bradford and the Mayflower and the early settlements here, and how early on they tried to do this commune thing, and it didn't work out because there were a lot of lazy people not doing anything, and the hardworking people were getting sick and tired of working. So to make all hands industrious, William Bradford said, we're going to give you a plot of land, because back in that day, it wasn't all owned by the banks. They own the plots of land, and they don't give it to you. They rip you off. Anybody who pays a mortgage understands that. They totally rip you off. Gave them all a plot of land and told them, go out there and make your own, because you're on your own now. And that very idea sparked the real concept of freedom, whether you know it or not. Because once everybody was working and creating stuff, whether it would be crops or whatever, maybe blankets, maybe someone would go out and hunt. Once that enterprise of freedom was unleashed, it began to build a whole new concept that led to the founding of this great country. And yes, we have flaws, ladies and gentlemen. I don't say we don't. But there's one thing about the Constitution that's really good, but it's been used against us in so many ways as well, is that we can amend it. We can change it over time. It's a living, breathing Constitution. And in a responsible individual who wants responsible things for themselves as well as others, we would have elected people and put people in place so that some of these amendments to the original founding of this country, the original Constitution, some of these amendments would have never came to pass. Going back to the abolishment of slavery, which I do agree with, but in many ways, people allowed themselves to be slaves because freedom demands that you might have to die to protect your freedom. And the Constitution only protects the ones who understand that concept. Once you subjugate your freedom, once you give it away, you get civil rights then. Do you understand? Instead of having creator-endowed rights that is bestowed on you at birth. Nobody can take it away. You don't even have the right to take your rights away. Once you give your rights away, you are no longer free, which means you don't fall under that concept. Then you get your civil rights. And those are rights bestowed on you, granted, not bestowed, granted permission by the ruling powers on you. So when I hear about women's rights or minority rights, I'm like, that's because you've given your rights away. If you knew your rights, if you were a freedom pursuing person, you would know you don't need women's rights because you have creator endowed rights and they surpass. They're grandfathered in. But people had given their rights away. And people have taken things literally instead of understanding that when it says all men are created equal, that is the race of man. And I'm going to keep pounding that into your head. Because it's not about just the male persuasion. Freedom was granted to everyone who wanted it. The problem is, most people didn't understand the concept of freedom, or they didn't want the responsibility of it. And so they subjugated it to someone else. They didn't stand up for their rights by just doing what the Declaration of Independence dictated. Do your thing. Enjoy your life. But don't take somebody else's rights away. That's what freedom is. Nobody can tell you. Nobody can tell you. Nobody can control you. But that freedom, and this is my fault for believing in it, because I have a strong belief in freedom, but that's the true minority in this country. People didn't want to be responsible for themselves. People didn't want to take on the problems of the neighborhood, of the community. Because we don't have to take on the problems of the world. That's not your business. You take on the problems of your neighborhood, your family. First, your family. You fix the problems in your family. Then the next step was your neighborhood and your community. People don't even want to take care of their family problems. Look at how many fathers that have bastard children. And they don't try to support them. They're not there for their kids. Look at how many fathers are like that. There's a lot of mothers like that as well. Freedom dictates that everything you are a part of, you have to be responsible for it. So if you're a part of making a baby, ladies, listen as well. If you are a part of making a baby, that means having sex and getting pregnant, you're responsible. You're responsible for that. Both people, the father and the mother. There are ways to avoid that. But for whatever reason, you didn't choose to take those into consideration. You didn't choose to be responsible. Therefore, you didn't choose freedom. You just did what it felt good. That's animalistic. That's not the human race. That's why I think most people don't want to be part of the evolutionary change that freedom brought them. It was as big of an evolutionary change as that first thought that man had. That day where they were just an animal and all of a sudden they had their first original thought, the change from people ruling us to freedom, was an equal evolutionary leap. And as we're seeing, folks, most people can't make that leap. One more segment when we return.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
Because the John LeBang Show will be right back.
After this. That's guaranteed. Yes. Absolute Skin and Body Care, located in Livonia, Michigan. If you're in need of laser hair removal, skin care, laser tattoo removal, or laser hair regrowth, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Their phone number is 248-533-0448. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Give them a call. You're listening to the John LeBang Show. It's huge. Now I got to tweet about it. So yeah, if you want nationalized health care, universal health care, you don't want freedom. If you want Social Security, you don't want freedom. If you want a secure job, you don't want freedom. Because all those things are created by someone else, and you're asking for them to be in charge of it. You just want the benefits, whatever little benefits come from it. Freedom is almost totally gone because most people don't want that responsibility. If you want reparations for slavery, you don't want freedom because you're going to force people, you're going to make it an obligation for some people to be taxed and paid to you. That's not freedom. That's tyranny. Running through neighborhoods and destroying private and public property isn't freedom, it's tyranny. Responsible people wouldn't do that. Only the irresponsible, temper tantrum types would do that. People who don't want any responsibility for anything. They aren't even responsible for bathing themselves by some of the pictures I've seen. And so many people have the nerve to tell you this and that and right and wrong, and none of these people, not one of them, understands the concept of freedom. And even if they did, they don't want the responsibility of it. It's too much self-control. Self-governance. What a great concept. And that's the concept of freedom, self-governance. You can govern yourself so that nobody else has to. Well, do you think that's what's going on, folks, here in Michigan, here in the state you live in the United States, or anywhere in the world at this moment in history? Somebody else is determining everything for you. You're not. You're barely in control. Why? May I ask, did that happen? How did that happen, ladies and gentlemen, that you are no longer in control of anything? Practically everything is now being dictated to you. Why is that? It's because you subjugated your freedom to them. They now have power over you. And if they tell you you should wear a mask or we're going to fine you, then you're going to have to wear a mask. You get the government you deserve, ladies and gentlemen. You get the government you deserve. You elected every single one of these crappy politicians, whether it be outright people who are just vicious and self-interested and narcissistic, or even to some degree worse, the linguini spines that won't stand up against it. You elected them. You chose not to hold their feet to the fire, and now we're on the verge of losing it all. And we're going to go back to a very
monarch-styled world government where it's under one head, or at least one mindset. Boy, they did a good job, didn't they? They gave you freedom knowing you couldn't keep it, knowing you were too lazy to keep it. And they gave you reasons not to keep it, little payoffs. That's what I see now. I talk to some other people. They're like, I got my pension to worry about. I can't do anything. I got my pension to worry about. And I was like, what are we going to do about this? And then I realized, because that was going to be the show. What are we going to do about the current situation? And as we rolled up into the show, I realized nothing. All my years of trying to do stuff, I'm but a small percentage of people. The vast majority think voting is the only thing they can do about it. And they don't want to change it. They don't want to send up people that'll tell you it's your job to make your neighborhoods safer. It's your job to make sure your family is well taken care of. It's not the government's job. Instead of getting a bribe tax credit because you have a kid or two, it should be your job to make sure they're well without that tax credit. But you need it. You need that money, right? You take that money as bribery to give up your freedoms, to give up your kids' freedoms. Because once you give up freedoms, you're giving your posterity that same no-win scenario. And even the ones who talk tough about the freedom, talk tough about liberty and stuff, what are you doing? See, I had the great enlightening moment during the last mega crash, before this one. 2008 I was already enlightened because of 9/11. I was learning more and more and more, but that crash was very telling of what was happening in the world. How the election turned out from there on and what was happening. I made a choice. I said, okay, I'm going to support the system. Not freedom, but the system which is taking away freedom. I'm going to support it less. So I began to work less. Because I didn't want to contribute to the endless wars, to the massive foreign aid, to a welfare system. No. I didn't want to do it anymore. Because the system was so corrupt that I could tell freedom was in short supply. And it was only going to be a matter of time before they went for everything. They cut you off at the knee in 2011 or 8. Forced you under some interesting tax situations after that. Put you in all this debt. Now, they unleashed so much more on you because they're coming for it. They realize, ladies and gentlemen, and the masks are totally symbolic of it. And that's why I'm opposed to them now. I don't care if I get sick. Because freedom dictates that I have to take that risk. I have to risk getting sick and dying because of that. I couldn't subjugate when they told me I have to wear a mask, even though I was wearing it when they didn't tell me. I was wearing it to protect myself. But as soon as they told me I have to wear that mask, I was like, no, I don't have to do anything. I'll take the risk of getting sick and dying when I go out in public. And they're not going to let you into some of these stores, and that's fine. Freedom's a tough thing, folks, and if you want to stand on principle, if you want to stand for what this country was supposed to be, they gave us the opportunity to make it something, then maybe you can't go to these places. If they're going to make you do something, and you believe in freedom, whether you want to wear the mask or not, because I wasn't opposed to them, but I can't do it because they're telling me. I can't do that. Once they tell me I have to do something, you know what's next? They're going to tell me something else. I have to do something else. And I have to do something else after that. And isn't that exactly what has been going on over the past, well, in a more overt fashion, the past 4 months, although we've seen this encroachment on freedom for decades. Yeah. So even though I took responsibility for myself by wearing the mask when it wasn't required, only because I wanted to protect myself against the mob, because I know the mob doesn't care about my freedom, my individual liberty. As long as they have theirs, if they were to pass on some sickness to me, they're not going to have to deal with it. But now that I'm seeing freedom being completely shredded, I'm not going to wear masks. I'm not. In fact, I'm going to do a video. And those of you watching will just love it. That don't like the mask either. Just going to love it because it's going to be a mask burning video. Stay tuned for that, folks, on my YouTube channel. But if they're going to now force this stuff on you and we comply, then I'm telling you, more stuff is coming. And I'm not going to settle for it. I believe in freedom. I believe in individual responsibility. And individual responsibility says if freedom is challenged, you have to be willing to fight and die for it. That means risk getting a virus that they, by my personal belief and by many accounts, there's plenty of evidence suggesting this at least, they unleashed. And they probably, if they did unleash, if we get into this conspiracy here, if they unleashed it, it was to take away all your rights in one fell swoop. And when they don't tell the mobs they can't congregate, but they tell you you can't get together with your friends, well, then you know something's going down much bigger than just a natural boogie-woogie virus. Thanks, folks, for listening. Hope you got something out of this show. We'll be continuing on doing these sporadic shows for a little while until we figure out our new schedule. And let's be honest, after what's been happening to Michael Savage and the threats he's been getting, it's probably best we're not doing a show all the time right now, and we're preparing for some things that might be coming down the pike. So until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Missed any portions of the show? Go to the website, www.jlebang.com. And until next time, I'm John Lebang signing out from the Banger Studios.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Tune in again next week. Same time, same space,